Okay, group, so here is our first official set of notes for the school year. It is over Introduction to Ecology. As we go through this, you will see that I provide notes in what's called bullet point style. So if you need help setting up your notebook, please let me know. Just come see me during advisement, and I can give you some examples on how that looks. But our first topic is Introduction to Ecology, so we will cover several different topics that we will be working on the next about week or so in class. Our learning goal for this set of notes, so what hopefully you'll be able to accomplish by the time we are done here, is identifying what ecology is and what factors play into ecology, and then also being able to compare and contrast biotic and abiotic factors. So very first thing here is just a quick explanation of what exactly is ecology. Ecology actually comes from the Greek root ecos, so very similar to like economy, where we humans will use the economy to judge basically how much money or how much productivity is occurring in a set location, so like the global economy or the national economy. Ecology is the study of the organisms within the biosphere and how they interact with each other. So it's basically payout and investment, but instead of using money, we look at it in terms of life and also in terms of things that aren't living. The biosphere itself is, you can kind of think of it like this picture down here, which hopefully our biosphere doesn't break, but our biosphere is almost like a bubble. Almost like a bubble of Earth, and then it also includes all of life, but then it also includes everywhere where just life exists. So that includes the land, water, and the atmosphere. So you can also think of it of biotic and abiotic factors, which we'll get to here in just a second. So we have a picture here, and how you take notes on this is kind of up to you. We will make something in class for this, so as long as you know that there are different levels of organization and we'll do something with this, then you don't need to worry too much about writing anything down. But levels of organization, if we start at the very top here with the biosphere, remember that the biosphere is going to be the Earth. It's the Earth and all of the living and non-living things included. So it's really just, it's everything. It's a closed system as far as ecology is concerned, meaning that we actually don't have much coming in and we don't have much going out. It's all very controlled. A biome, for this class, we don't need to have the biomes memorized, but there are several different biomes. Those include things like desert, tropical rainforest, temperate forest, Arctic, tundra, things like that. So it's basically an environment in which all organisms and all matter has a common collection or a common unit. So if we are going into the biome, the ecosystem is again going to be in that set location. It is going to be all of the living and non-living things. So that's going to include, for this one, that includes the stream here and these bears and the grass and the mountains and the eagle here. A community is exactly like it sounds. It's going to be a community of different species. So now we're getting more specific. So a community does include all of our living things. In this community, we have a moose and we have a bobcat and a jackrabbit and a beaver and an owl, but we also have all of the different species of trees and grasses that we see there also. A population, just like a population of humans, is a population of one specific species. So here we have a population of moose, and then we get down to the individual level where we have an individual moose. So if this individual right here in the population is the individual shown here. Or excuse me, that's elk. That is not moose. That's population of elk. All right, so biotic versus abiotic. Biotic is, anytime you see that root bio, that means living. So a biotic factor is any living part of the environment, whereas abiotic, anytime you see that root A, that means non or not. So this literally translates to not living. So biotic is living, abiotic is not living. So we have a comparison here. So our biotic factors can be plants, animals, but it also includes things like fungi, bacteria, archaea, which is a subset of bacteria, and then protists, which are another kind of subset of bacteria. And then abiotic factors include things like the air, the salinity, so the amount of salt in the water, the soil, temperature, light, water, minerals, pH, humidity. These are all things that they influence the biotic factors, but they themselves are not biotic. Producers and consumers, we will look at this quite a bit, but primary producers, we can also call these guys autotrophs, and these are going to be the living things that make their own food. This includes plants and some bacteria, some fungi, and some protists. It just kind of depends on the individual organism itself. Auto, anytime you see that root, auto means self. Like an automobile is a self-propelled vehicle. And troph, or trough, means food. So I always remember I'm from a farming community, so horses eat out of troughs. So autotroph literally translates to self-food. Producers have two methods of making food. So for the most part, producers will use photosynthesis, so that includes all plants and most animal autotrophs. So photosynthesis means that the energy comes from the sun, and then you go through the chemical process to transfer that energy. Chemosynthesis is literally translates to making from chemicals. So chemosynthesis is the energy from the use of chemicals. Chemosynthesis is not quite as productive as photosynthesis. Photosynthesis, you will get more payout with that, but chemosynthesis is helpful because you don't need sunlight for it. You can do it on the complete darkness. However, you do need some sort of energy source in terms of heat. So typically chemosynthesis will occur near volcanic vents and or hot springs deep in the ocean. Here's a comparison of photosynthesis is here on the left, and then chemosynthesis is here on the right. Now, they both do produce carbohydrates or sugars as their main product. The big difference between them is that chemosynthesis has to use hydrogen sulfide. So there has to be this hydrogen sulfide. It'll smell like sulfur. It stinks really bad when you're near these like volcanic vents, or if you've ever been to like Yellowstone and you've been near the hot springs or the thermal pools, they smell really bad because of this hydrogen sulfide and because the sulfur compounds that are given off as a result of that chemosynthesis. Consumers, on the other hand, these guys are also called heterotroph. Hetero means other, so this literally translates to other food. Consumers are going to be organisms that consume or eat either producers, or they will eat other consumers. So here the different types of consumers, it literally just goes up step by step. If we look at this energy pyramid down here, you'll see that a producer will have 100% of their energy, which makes sense because they make their own energy. A first level consumer, which would be the same as saying a primary consumer, they only get 10% of the energy from which they eat. Everything else is given off in the form of heat. So primary consumers will get 10% of the energy that they gain from the primary producer. Secondary consumers will get 1%. Tertiary consumers will get 0.1%. And then if we went one more, quaternary consumers would get 0.01%. And the reason for that is just because you have more and more energy given off as heat. So for each of the energy levels, only 10% of the previous level continues on. Food chains versus food webs. Food chains are shown here on the left. It is very direct, and typically it is a too simple way to see what organisms are consuming what other organisms. So in this particular food chain, we have our primary producers down here at the bottom, the grass and the trees. The grasshopper is the primary consumer. It is eating the grass. The frog eats the grasshopper. The snake eats the frog. The hawk eats the snake. Food webs are more complex, and they show many relationships. They also will show what are called disturbances. So this will mean that you could see then the result of, let's say, for example, the squirrel population increases too much. So that's going to mean that the tree population will decrease because there's way more squirrels to consume the producer of the trees. So now you're seeing that you have the grass and the trees and which organisms are eating what. And you see that the fox actually consumes 3 different types of organisms. It consumes the bird, the chipmunk, and the squirrel. So you can see the relationships between them a lot better here on the food web than you can on the food chain. Last kind of thing that we're going to talk about are the cycles of matter. Because matter is not created nor is it destroyed, it has to be recycled. So we do this by what are called biogeochemical cycles. Fun term there. Again, bio is going to mean living. Geo means earth, and then chemical is chemical. So it literally translates to living, earth, chemical cycles. These include the water cycle. We have 3 different types of nutrient cycles, which are called the carbon cycle, nitrogen cycle, and phosphorus cycle. And then we also have another part of that, which is called nutrient limitations. If ever you take chemistry, you will also learn this as the limiting factor. This is the nutrient with the least amount that will halt production and progress. So if, for example, you are farming and you do not have enough phosphorus, that is going to be your nutrient limitation. That's why your crops won't grow. And then you can add fertilizer. Cycle matter can be described in 4 ways. Biological processes, which is any and all activities performed by living organisms. This includes eating, defecating or removal of waste, breathing, that should have a comment there, breathing, comma, eating food, etc. So biological processes. Geological processes are volcanic eruptions, the rock cycle, and then plate tectonics. Chemical and physical processes are basically more or less your water cycle, so the formation of clouds and precipitation, flow of running water, and lightning. And then human activity also plays a role now. So this is all processes driven by humans that affect the cycles of matter on a global scale. So again, this could be the use of fertilizers or the overuse of fertilizers. It can be the burning of fossil fuels. It can be the overfishing of a population. So we also have to consider how these human activities play a role. Each of these descriptions can come back to the cycles that we have here, and we will practice that in class, being able to depict where in the carbon cycle do we have biological processes, human activity, where do we have geological processes. So we will be looking at that and being able to describe those. So that is it for your first set of notes. We will do more discussion, and we will do more activities in class that will really drive these ideas and these concepts home, but this just gives you a general overview. If you have any questions, please email me, and if not, I will see you in class ready to go to start learning about ecology.